Yo, gang, it's Wes. Welcome to another art episode this week. Excited about this one because we're going to be doing like a small, kind of a master study deal. I've been on a huge Destiny kick lately, and one of my favorite artists actually did the art for this right here, Piotr Jablonski, and we're going to be trying to paint something in the style of Piet and kind of see if we can nail that kind of oracle-ish, mythos vibe. Limited color palette, simple shapes, a lot of expressive brushstrokes. So we're actually going to use Artrage for this one and then do some finishing touches in Photoshop. But I'm excited to do this one. I've wanted to do a study in this style for a while. I just haven't had a chance to, but I actually wanted to film the process. We're going to just talk a little bit about Piet's style. Then we're going to try to mimic it the best we can, kind of put our own flair on it, and see if we can make something that looks pretty awesome. And it has to be Destiny fan art. So it's going to be some Destiny art. That's how it is. But anyways, let's get started. Let's start the show. And here we go. So this is going to be a look at just kind of my normal process whenever I do, I guess, what I would consider a master study, because Piet is absolutely a master, make no mistake about it, a contemporary master. He's super, super good. This just shows kind of my process of, I knew kind of what I wanted to do, but I needed to get more inspiration just from his art, but also I had some stock photo packs. And you're just going to see me kind of dabble around a little bit. And later on, you're actually going to notice that I scrap. Well, first thing is I think I scrapped this first one entirely. I don't do a lot of thumbnails. I probably should, because what I do find is basically I thumbnail by painting too much. I just paint until I'm like, this isn't working, and then I scrap it. And that stuff could be solved way earlier in the process if I just thumbnailed. But the way I work right now, it's just, I like to kind of dig in a little bit, get past that first little layer of idea, and then see if it's making me excited or if there's just something cool about it. And if so, I keep at it. If not, it goes in the bin, as it were. And I kind of work that way with a lot of the kind of master study or doing something in the style of. And I did want to mention while we're getting into it that I do have some Skillshare courses, and one of them is called Having Fun with Master Studies. I also have it on sale on my Gumroad and ArtStation and QBrush page, which links to all that stuff should be in the description, but also a link to get Skillshare for free. Use that one. I have that. I have the Having Fun with Master Studies course, which we look at. It has 4 hours or 4+ hours of video footage, I think, in real-time narration, where we dissect a Frank Frazetta piece and then kind of mimic it and make a Thor piece of fan art. A lot of fun on that one. It's not pushed to a complete finish, but it's good enough to kind of get you going, to send to an art director, that type of thing. But what we do is we break down stuff, and I use that same method here. In kind of more of a time-lapsed form, I guess. So I want to say this whole thing took about 3-ish hours, something like that. If you watch the clock, I actually had to take a break, but you can see the time skip type stuff. But I spent about 3 hours on this one. Normally on a full production piece, I would spend 15 to 30-ish hours. I know one of the Warhammer pieces, I have 2 that are currently in the approval process from Games Workshop, but then the other 2, and like on all of those, I've spent about 15 to 20 hours so far, so I expect to put about 10 hours more in each of them once I get feedback. But something like this is considered a quick sketch, in my opinion. Normally, I don't work longer than 5-6 hours on a personal piece. I just don't. Because I have too many ideas and I want to try them all and figure it out. And I think this is a cool way to do that, is to look at the style of somebody and try to find what we really like about that person. And something that Piet does is he has very simple shapes. He simplifies very, very well. And they're very, no shape goes unnoticed. Destiny is great because it's very geometric in the way that hell, the newest expansion pack, Beyond Light, it's like nothing but triangles, you know? So, you have the spheres, you have the Traveler, you have ghosts, you have, all these things are very shape-oriented, so they have strong silhouettes. And I wanted to work with that because I thought the more basic you can keep those shapes, the more like we could get it with Piet's work. Also, you'll notice I started in Artrage this time. I started in Artrage. I love Artrage. I talk about Paintstorm Studio a lot, but Artrage is another secret weapon. If I want to have a true traditional feeling of putting wet paint down on a canvas and smearing it around and seeing what happens, Artrage is actually my go-to. I just think it responds so well. And the color mixing is fine. There's actually a quote-unquote realistic color blend mode that you can do. Instead of RGB, it's more of the CMYK-esque, how paint, or I guess instead of additive light, it's more of the subtractive, where once you mix everything, it makes it brown and black, and instead of the other way around on a computer screen, where mixing everything gets you white. It's a side note, but that type of stuff you can learn more in my having fun with master study. But really, what you'll notice I do is I kind of, in a weird way, I kind of overthink things. I make it a little too hard on myself until I get to a point to where I'm spinning too many plates, and then what I do is I re-simplify. I kind of condense everything down. I'm like, okay, this is fine enough. Now, how can we change it? How can we fix it? I'm a big revision person. I like looking at a thing, sleeping on it, waking up and being like, this is horrible, or this is awesome. And then making the stronger points stronger, or the, kind of diminishing the weaker points, or getting rid of them entirely if I can, without restarting. But sometimes you restart. That's what I did here. I wasn't feeling what I had going on. So then what I did is I brought in a photo, and I was like, okay, here's some cool shapes. I like the layout of this. I like the perspective it gives. But then you'll notice by the end of it, hardly any, I think there's one structure on there that's actually from the photo. And then I, matte paint / photo bash it in, as it were. But something that I also notice about Piet's work that I don't do a lot, and I probably should, is limited palette. So right now you're going to see me working in pure grayscale, black and white. Just my value ranges. Values are easier to get in grayscale. It is. You don't have color to worry about. You can always wash color on top of it, things like that. And for this one, we actually use a technique that whenever I stumbled upon it about a year ago, I knew about it for graphic design, but never really for digital painting, and that was gradient mapping. But whenever you use gradient maps, you kind of get that Piet look immediately. And I was like, oh. So what I wanted to do with this is I wanted to just make the painting first, and then worry about making it look like a Piet color scheme later. And we use kind of some pastel-y, photographic toning looks, because his Piet's work is very big. And what I mean by that, it feels like you're reading a sacred text. That's why his art works so well in the Grimoire anthology for the Destiny books. It just looks like a relic. It looks like you found this ancient text of, it's awesome. It's like a Bible. It really is. And so you want that sort of hieroglyphic-y shapes, but profound enough to have really high contrast, so your darks are almost black and your lights are like blinding, because what that does is it gets your attention, and it makes it easier to read. So I think what one of my mishaps was here is I got a little, I don't know, it felt like I got a little too painterly. I got too, hey, won't this look neat? No, look at this brush and look at that. I got too much in my own head, which I do sometimes. Actually, I do that quite a bit. It's one of the things I need to work on. But at the end of the day, you're going to see me, and I keep going back and forth between different references. So I start with a Piet reference, then go to like photo reference. In the middle, I come back to a Piet reference and be like, oh yeah, no, this is how he does it. And then I kind of mimic that a little bit, and then I get off into my own painting thing. You can even see half the time the reference pure ref isn't even on on the window. I'm just in there and painting. And then every once in a while I'm like, oh yeah, this is a Piet study. And then I'll drag the window back in and do more Piet work. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I actually learned quite a bit. I learned that in a weird way, certain brushes work better for certain styles, which sounds obvious. But, you know, we had that episode not too long ago about brushes. What brushes do you use? And brushes are important, but you get so locked into the stuff that you know, it's kind of a different deal to kind of branch out. And I think the one that really started making things happen for me in this one, in my platinum brush pack, is the oil and water mix. And what it does is it blends the foreground and the background color depending on your pressure, but it gets that repeated stamp texture that I actually like about digital art. A lot of people don't. A lot of people want to smooth that stuff out. I like it because it's kind of like you're showing the hand of a magic trick. Like, you kind of show them the technique, and then they're like, whoa, wait, so you did that for the whole thing? And to me, it makes my imagination start running more wild, because I was like, oh my gosh, this was made out of not, this wasn't some, overly airbrushed, rendered, super, spotless. Like, this is raw, this is rugged. And I think that's something that I do like about Piet's work, primarily. It's like he knew exactly what he was going to paint, and then he just painted it. There was no problem solving, you know what I mean? Like, there's a sense of magic whenever I see his work, that I just can't. It seems like I know how to paint pretty well. Piet does something else. He does something completely different. He's on another level, and it's learning that edge control and lighting, and it seems so easy because it's like, oh, he has a limited palette, he has harsh lights, there's a key light coming from a main direction, and then he has ambience of fog and clouds and smoke and smog, and you think, oh yeah, no problem. But then you start putting it into practice and you realize just how good at composition he is. And that's really the part that I'm excited to learn more about composition. But it's the part to where I like hold my head in my hands and I'm like, how do I learn this? Like, yeah, rule of thirds, yeah, Fibonacci sequence, golden ratio, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, Piet stuff does not look mathematic. It looks like, it's funny to use a Warhammer term, it's like he's a remembrancer. He's somebody that like acknowledged a thing, and photographs didn't exist yet, like cameras didn't exist, so he had to paint it. You know what I mean? Like, it's that captured moment in time thing. Just super beautiful to look at. And like, I can look at his stuff all day, and a lot of times I have it up on separate monitors, and he's somebody that he paints, it's not realistic, but it's believable. You know what I mean? There's that difference, and we talked about it last episode, but it really is, and it's something fun to see, and this was a really fun study. I think I put too much pressure on myself to make it look like a Piet thing, but then I got frustrated because I couldn't do it, so I went back to my old habits, and then I was like, wait, no, this is for the YouTube, man, people are going to see it, and then, hop back and forth. But I guess that's the artist curse, right, is while you're working on a thing, or if you're a writer or a painter, or even like a baker or photographer, you maybe have this idea or want to do a study, and then you go off on your own little land because it starts giving you ideas and you're excited, but then you're like, oh wait, what's the point? What am I trying to do here? I think what really captured it though is whenever I did add the gradient map, it kind of brought me back. It brought that gravity back down. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember what I'm doing now. This is a Piet thing. Just beautiful stuff. I'd love to learn this style more and work more in it because he's so confident in his shapes, and I need to be more confident in mine. That's how it is. I use Artrage and I use PaintStorm and I use smeary oily brushes and stuff, and it has some really cool techniques. But I think one thing that's going to push my art to the next level is just deciding and committing. Like, make it look the best it can. And I think to do that, in order to do that, from what I found with this study and with other studies, is thumbnailing is probably a good idea. It's probably a good idea to make 7 or 8 thumbnails and then decide on the one that you think is the most interesting and then run with it, because a lot of your problem solving is done. You'll notice that I actually had a full wallpaper size, like a 4K size setup, and then I brought in the photo and resized it and all that stuff, and then I just wasn't feeling the whole look of it. So what I did is I cropped it. I cut out half of it, more than half of it actually. And then I didn't like where that foreground fallen character was, so then I flipped him. I was like, you know what? No, go back over to the other stuff. I need the seeker, the person looking out into the distance, to be kind of your main idea, because that's where a lot of the cool oil brush work was going to be. So I was like, let's do that. Let's get a lot of information over on one side of the canvas, and then almost have the watcher up front, you know, in the kind of the midground looking into the background. Have him be the focal point, because he's not paying attention to what's behind him. All the activity of the canvas is behind him, all the details and all the rocks and all the blah, and the other guy looking at the camera or the, you know, whatever. But the watcher's not worried about that. He's looking at that distant structure, and I don't even know what the structure is. I just thought, hey, I like the vibe of this. I like the fact that we can't tell what it is. Is he looking at what it is? Do they know something we don't? You know what I mean? Like, there's that setup, and I like that because it adds that air of mystery, which is something that Piet's work does. It does really, really well, is you get everything you need from a quick glance, but then you look at the subtle storytelling stuff he has, and it's off the chart. But yeah, this was a fun study. I want to maybe do more studies like this for YouTube and kind of talk about my thought process and things like that. I am happy with how this turned out. I think it does need more polish to be able to match that Piet level. But like I said, with Warhammer stuff, if I spend 30 hours on it, I mean, within 3 hours, I got something that felt pretty good. Now, if I used 10 times the amount, if I had just this marked down, if I had this locked down, this composition locked, and I spent another 20 hours on it, I'm not saying it'd be at Piet's level, but it would be publishable. It would be print ready. I could deliver it as a final, and I think the client would be pleased. And that's what it's about. You know what I mean? So it's about getting that feedback, about looking and being agile, and that's just something that you have to practice, and I'm practicing it right here. It's, hey, if something's not working, scrap it, you know, kill your darlings, as it were. But yeah, that's enough of me rambling. Hope you guys got something cool out of this one. I do recommend getting one of your favorite artists and doing not a necessarily one-for-one study of one of their things, but work in the style of, because then I think you have to look at your hero's art with a more critical eye, and you have to make sure that you're understanding what their goal is and what their intent is, while also learning how to mimic it or pay homage to it yourself. And it's just it does nothing but help, because now you have more ammunition, now you have more experience, you've done more paintings. You know, my goal in art is not to be a poor man's Piotr Jablonski, but if someone can look at my stuff and be like, you know, your stuff is really nice and it reminds me a lot of Piotr, I'd take that as an honor. I'm not one of those that gets upset about comparison. I think it's hopefully I do wear my the people I look up to on my sleeve, my inspirations and all that stuff. I want to showcase stuff that I love through my art, and other artists are definitely part of that. But that's my time. Like I said, if you want to check out the Having Fun with Master Studies pack, and also I have a class called Traditional Looks for Digital Painting, which are also on Skillshare. You can take for free. Check out the link in the description. This video ain't sponsored or nothing, Mom. It's just, hey, I'm a Skillshare instructor, and it's a cool service, and I like it. But yeah, go take them for free. Hopefully you learn a lot. We talk more about color and theory and design elements and the rule of threes. Not the rule of thirds, which is a composition thing, but the rule of threes. Having 3 items in there to bring interest into the viewer, keeps them looking at the canvas. we go into that very in depth, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. But that's my time. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. The weather's getting colder. I love it. I'm a big fan of cold weather. BAM box reveal should be soon for November. Get those November geek BAM box orders in at thebambox.com. Get yourself an art print signed by yours truly. Can't tell you what the IP is yet, but once you see it, you guys are going to freak out. The biggest IP of my career. So yeah, take it easy. We'll see you next time here on the Art of Wes Gardner. Peace.